Welcome back to Big Questions, Big Ideas, where we examine the questions that sit at the core of human self-understanding. In this episode, we confront a question that challenges how we think about responsibility, morality, and even personal identity. Do we really have free will, or is it an illusion? At first glance, free will seems obvious. We feel that we make choices every day: what to say, what to believe, what path to take in life. Yet when we look more closely, philosophy and science raise unsettling doubts. If our actions are caused by prior events, brain processes, genetics, or social conditioning, then in what sense are we truly free? This question has occupied philosophers for centuries, and today it stands at the intersection of philosophy, neuroscience, psychology, and ethics. Determinism. Are all our actions caused? The challenge to free will begins with determinism, the idea that every event is the result of prior causes. If the universe operates according to physical laws, then every human action, every decision, may be the inevitable outcome of earlier conditions. Thinkers like Thomas Hobbes argued that human behavior is governed by desires and aversions that follow causal laws. According to this view, when we choose, we are simply acting according to the strongest motive at the time. If determinism is true, then it seems that our sense of freedom may be misleading. We may feel as though we could have acted differently, but given the exact same circumstances, we would always act the same way. This raises a troubling implication. If our actions are determined, can we truly be held morally responsible? Hard determinism, free will as an illusion. Some philosophers embrace this conclusion fully. Hard determinists argue that free will does not exist at all. If every action has a sufficient cause, then genuine choice is impossible. In the modern era, this position has gained support from neuroscience. Experiments by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s suggested that brain activity associated with a decision occurs before a person becomes consciously aware of choosing. This has led some scientists to argue that consciousness merely observes decisions after they are already made. From this perspective, free will is a post hoc story we tell ourselves, an illusion generated by the brain to make sense of its own processes. Libertarian free will, freedom beyond determinism. In contrast, libertarian philosophers argue that free will is real and incompatible with determinism. According to this view, human beings are genuine originators of actions. We are not merely links in a causal chain. We can initiate new causal sequences. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant argued that moral responsibility requires freedom. If we are bound entirely by natural causation, then moral obligation makes no sense. Kant suggested that while we may be determined in the physical world, we are free in a deeper moral sense. Critics of libertarianism, however, question how free actions could occur without being random. If choices are not determined, what explains them? This tension remains one of the deepest problems in the philosophy of free will. Compatibilism, freedom within determinism. A third approach, known as compatibilism, attempts to reconcile free will with determinism. Compatibilists argue that freedom does not require the absence of causes. Instead, it requires that actions flow from the agent's internal states, beliefs, desires, and values, rather than from external coercion. Philosophers such as David Hume claim that freedom is simply the ability to act according to one's will. If I choose to act based on my reasons, even if those reasons are caused, I am still free in the sense that matters. Modern compatibilists argue that this understanding preserves moral responsibility. What matters is not whether we could have acted differently in an absolute sense, but whether our actions express who we are. Neuroscience and the modern debate. Advances in neuroscience have intensified the debate. Brain imaging studies show correlations between neural activity and decision making. Some interpret this as evidence against free will. However, many philosophers caution against drawing quick conclusions. Correlation does not equal elimination. The brain is the medium through which decisions occur, but that does not mean agency disappears. Conscious deliberation may still play a real causal role. Some researchers now argue for a limited or constrained free will, one shaped by biology and environment, but not wholly eliminated by them. Why free will matters. The stakes of this debate are enormous. If free will is an illusion, what becomes of moral responsibility, justice, and personal growth? Can we blame wrongdoing or praise virtue if individuals had no real choice? On the other hand, if free will exists even in a limited form, it grounds our practices of responsibility, accountability, and moral evaluation. Perhaps the most important insight is this: our understanding of free will shapes how we treat one another and ourselves. Conclusion. So is free will an illusion? Philosophy offers no final verdict. Determinism challenges our intuitions. Libertarianism defends human agency. Compatibilism redefines freedom in practical terms. What remains clear is that free will is not an abstract puzzle alone. It affects how we understand guilt, forgiveness, punishment, and hope. Whether freedom is absolute or constrained, the question forces us to reflect deeply on what it means to be human. As we move forward in this series, our next question will push this inquiry even further. Can we ever know reality at all? If our minds shape what we perceive, then how confident can we be in what we think we know?